And we're back for episode 3894, J&J News. Josh, welcome back. Good to see you this weekend.
Great to be back with you, buddy. Of course, at the end of the week, wrapping up, but also a lot of new news.
It doesn't seem to slow down. You are in a massive cold snap there in the US, but it hasn't stopped people out there in the crazy Tim Waltz territory to just lose their minds again.
Isn't it interesting that no matter what, liberals cannot escape ICE, whether it's ICE agents, whether it's the ICE in Greenland, whether it's the ICE blanketing 40% of the United States of America. I just love it. We love ICE. So what would that be? Instead of Ice Ice Baby, it would be Ice 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 Baby, right?
And there it is. Well, look. Again, in the US, another person who is brandished as a martyr has been shot and killed in a scuffle that's occurred on the streets there. Let's play for you a clip now. It's not going to be comprehensive, but there are lots of angles and views going around. But this particular person, this registered nurse, 37-year-old Alex Pretty, has been shot and killed. I'm just going to locate the clip for you. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do whilst I'm locating that, I'm just going to play Commander Bovino now, just reporting on what happened.
At 9:05 a.m. Central Standard Time, as DHS law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted operation in Minneapolis against an illegal alien, Jose Huerta Chuma. You can see this illegal alien on the screen to my left and right. That is Jose Huerta Chuma, whose criminal history includes domestic assault to intentionally inflict bodily harm, disorderly conduct, and driving without a valid license. During this operation, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The agents attempted to disarm the individual, but he violently resisted. Fearing for his life and the lives and safety of fellow officers, a Border Patrol agent fired defensive shots. Medics on the scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but the subject was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect also had 2 loaded magazines and no accessible ID. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Then, about 200 rioters arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault law enforcement. Crowd control measures have been deployed for the safety of the public and law enforcement. This situation is evolving, and more information is forthcoming. The officer was highly trained and had been serving as a Border Patrol agent for 8 years. The officer has extensive training as a range safety officer and less lethal officer.
So that's perspective number 1, Josh, and that's Border Patrol standing next to ICE. So this is law enforcement and law enforcement. Let's play for you now this particular angle.
The fuck, people? The fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
So I won't play further from that. It's just shocking. Of course, there's multiple angles there, and you do see this particular person, Alex Pretty. He's moving in. He's got something in his hand. He's getting in the way of officers there, and next thing he's on the ground, and something gets thrown to the side, maybe one of the magazines, etc. It's quite complicated. But Josh, what's your take? What are you seeing at the moment?
Well, first off, obviously the whistle, I had to pull my earpiece out because it was, blaring in my ears. But look, this is another situation of like Fentanyl Floyd, where you have a situation where someone's on the ground and they're videotaping a guy that supposedly looks like he has a knee on someone's neck, which of course he didn't, because the guy actually asked to be put on the ground, as I said before. He kicked out the windows of the car that he was put behind, in the back and everything else. So when they caught the video at that part when he was asked to be put on the ground. In this situation, it's hectic, obviously. They obviously push down the one person, and then you can't really see what's going on. But you're right, you can see at one point, especially in the video that I saw where they slow it down, you can see the gun, number one, and you can see something being thrown, as you said. So this certainly looks like resisting arrest, and resisting arrest with a gun. And, it's one thing to resist arrest when you don't have a weapon, then no one's going to shoot you. But if you have a gun on you, or possibly, again, he could have been, they were wrestling and grappling on the ground, he could have tried to grab one of the officers' guns. That's always a possibility. I guess we'd have to look at it a little bit, cleaner and further. But look, I think, honestly, it's about time for Republicans to get off their ass and to do a reconciliation bill. This way you block Democrats from stopping it with a filibuster. You only need 51 votes. You'd have 51 votes, of course, with Vance being the tiebreaker, just like the one big, beautiful bill. Pass the SAVE Act so that we have election integrity. And then, honestly, I would like to see an allocation of probably, $1 billion to ICE. $1 billion. I want to see ICE agents from Hawaii to Alaska and everywhere else in all 50 states, or if you're Barack Obama, 57 states, but I digress. I think enough is enough. Let's just blanket the entire country with ICE agents, and let's clear out and clean out hundreds of thousands and millions, if we can, of these illegal aliens and these criminals and, the rest of them. So that's what I would like to see happen. I'm done. I've had enough. They go into these cities, they're making it look bad, they're making ICE look bad. And again, remember, this is not about immigration. It's immigration for us, yes, but it's not immigration for the Democrats. They don't care about immigration. They care about their illegal voter base being ripped out in every one of these states that they have been able to use these illegal voters to steal elections. It's as simple as that. And so that's why you are seeing the craziness and the manicness, because they understand if we can't cheat, we don't have a message that's going to win over voters. So we have to make it look like ICE are these monsters, and we have to make sure that we, have the prostitutes in the media amplify our message, which of course they're doing. And the next thing you know, you're turning the independents away from President Trump and Republicans. And that's what their goal is, because they have nothing else. So I'll tell you right now, if the economy approves, and hopefully it will very, very soon, then I think independents are going to come back to Republicans and be like, look, the economy's doing great. There's less crime. The murder rate's as low as it's been since 1900. I'm voting for Republicans. But if somehow this economy does not come back, we're going to get slaughtered, absolutely slaughtered in the midterms.
Yeah, well, the economy's coming back at a rate of knots. Interest rates are going in the right direction. Gold and silver are booming. The stock market's making different inroads, etc. The oil business and investment is coming. The housing market is turning in the sense that there's the pressure of price rises is coming off, with the institutions no longer being able to support. So that all the steps are in the right place. Let me just put a picture up here. Andy Ngo on his X page. The city of Minneapolis and the state won't stop their shock troops from obstructing federal agents, allowing the militants to get up close and physical with them. The rioters want that confrontation, and they get it. Many of them come with weapons and are encouraged to be violent, as they believe martyrs will help the terror cause for open borders. They're relying on hoaxes by the press and on social media to incite mass anti-government uprisings. It's all been tried before, and the people who empowered deadly leftist insurrection, Waltz, Ellison, Frey et al., faced no political or social consequences. Well, that is just yet. Josh, quick question. In a state, and you might have some experience with this, where you have an open carry gun licence, if you walk around with a gun exposed on your belt and you do something that's aggressive without warrant, in other words, it's not based on self-defence, can you expect to be confronted by somebody else with a gun or law enforcement, and it just becomes the Wild West, so to speak, and you miss, and if you get shot, you get shot?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, when I go out where I live, you need a gun to go out at night, but it's not because of crime. It's because of wild animals that could be dangerous. But the bottom line is, if I take, let's say, a mountain hike, I'll have a gun on me even during the day. And we see people walking by, hey, how you doing? No problem. We're not pulling out our guns, you know what I mean? And quite frankly, and this is kind of something that maybe people in Australia and around the world can't understand, but if I walk into a store and I see somebody with a gun on their hip, I immediately feel safe. Immediately. Because I know that they're not going to just pull their gun out and go shooting someone. Now, if I see somebody that is maybe, I don't know, younger, let's say, a teenager, and they've got their pants baggy and sagging, and there's a gun kind of hanging in the front, I'm probably going to leave that store right away, because that type of person would pull out a gun and rob the place or shoot somebody or whatever. But where I live, we have lethal force that you can use everywhere. I mean, everybody has a gun. That's why there's barely any road rage where I'm at, because everyone has a gun. And even the Attorney General, the illegitimate Attorney General Chris Mays, carries a gun, and she said, because they're planning on doing an ICE operation, I think in Phoenix or Tucson, that she said that we have stand your ground laws, which is true, we do. And if we feel threatened, we're allowed to shoot back, right? But she also kind of insinuated that these rioters and protesters should be armed, and if they feel they're threatened, to shoot at ICE officers and Border Patrol and law enforcement. So I'm hoping that the president and the Department of Justice and the FBI investigate and look into Chris Mays and her recent statements and comments, because they were borderline kind of saying, hey, shoot ICE officers if you have to. So pretty sick.
Absolutely. Well, here we go. This is the victim there, Alex Pretty. This is apparently, allegedly, the gun that was on his person when he was shot and killed. It develops further. We've now seen this today, Josh, as well in Minneapolis. These rioters attacked our law enforcement officer, and one of them bit off our HSI officer's finger. Ugh. He's going to lose his finger. And you can see bottom right there is the fingertip in the jar and the bleeding finger there. And one can assume that that might be the officer top right and perhaps the assailant bottom left, but we're unsure there. But it has been amplified because Donald Trump has reposted that particular story there, and as you can see, 2/3 views already on that particular post that he put on there. So it's unbelievable. Adam Schiff has chimed in. Of course, this has to stop. Another person shot and killed, another senseless loss of life. We need ICE agents out of our cities right now. Well, maybe you shouldn't bring in the wrong people there, Adam Schiff. And it's interesting who chooses to speak up at this point. And when Democrats have Adam Schiff as their spokesperson alongside Tim Walz, you're thinking, well, they haven't got much left. Meanwhile, Rashida Tlaib, more than 5 agents beating and stomping someone before they execute him at point-blank range. How does Congress believe we now do to abolish ICE? Enough. Of course, she's going to say that. Secondly, this is Donald Trump, some comments. It's actually possible that the total amount of money stolen over the years by corrupt politicians and fraudsters from Minnesota will exceed $100 billion. In any event, whether it is or it isn't, the theft, incompetence and fraud is massive. Sadly, whatever numbers we find, California and other states will be worse. So he's just sort of piling it on there. Here's clandestine. The Democrats at the federal, state, local levels are in open rebellion against the Trump administration and the American people. They are obstructing our immigration laws to maintain power via fraudulent elections. They are engaged in insurrection. It must be done. Well, there it is. There it is.
You said it right there. To maintain their fraudulent elections. That's what this is all about, 100%. Yep. As far as DHS, they just had a vote, by the way, and there was enough Democrats that voted to fund ICE. So Mustache Tlaib can go pound sand.
Yeah, well, there you have it. Meanwhile, Amy Klobuchar, Donald Trump and all your lieutenants who ordered this ICE surge, watch the horrific video of the killing today. The world is watching. Thousands of citizens stopped and harassed. Local police no longer able to do their work. Kids hiding school clothes. Get ICE out of Minnesota. Stephen Miller, A domestic terrorist tried to assassinate federal law enforcement, and this is your response. You and the state's entire Democrat leadership team have been flaming the flames of insurrection for the singular purpose of stopping the deportation of illegals who invaded the country. And there it is once again. This is the whole purpose of it. So what we're seeing is the unravelling of a fraud and a sting to maintain power in perpetuity. There is a meme, and I'll try and locate it whilst we're playing the next clip, of all 4 previous presidents and their amount of deportations in the millions, and no one says a word, including Clinton and Obama. It's just interesting how different this world is, the way that this plays out. Meantime, Josh, whilst I'm going to find that for you, I just want to play this. Well, I don't know what else you could call him, but this is a fellow who identifies as Antifa. Listen to this guy, and word of warning: this is not us endorsing anything; it's us reporting the news.
My name is Kyle. I'm Antifa, and there's so much rage in me that I've had to record this like 15 times trying to get the message out. They fucked up, okay? Go watch my other videos. Doesn't matter if you're not here and you're not caught up. You missed the fucking fight. But if you are, it's time to suit up. Boots on the ground. Nicollet and fucking 26th. My house is 4 blocks away. Anywhere between Franklin and Nicollet and 26th and Nicollet. Show up, ready to go. Okay, not talking about peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore. I am talking specifically to my fucking followers. This is everything I have fucking talked about, and this is exactly what I said was gonna happen. This is exactly what I said was gonna fucking come when we didn't fucking go and march on fucking Whipple with guns. Sorry. But welcome to America 2026, where Second Amendment is the only thing that's going to keep you fucking protected from literal fucking Nazi gunmen that are killing innocent people in the street with impunity. This is not a fucking joke. There's nothing fun to chant about it. Get your fucking guns and stop these fucking people.
This is the smallest violin playing his tune. Look, I'm glad that he gave us his address, to be quite honest. So now, ICE and Border Patrol and whatever, FBI can go SWAT his house and drag him out immediately and arrest him for incitement to violence. So we'll see how long he lasts. Obviously, we saw the other idiot saying to Pam Bondi, "Come and get me," right? Well, let me explain a little bit on that, because I think it's important. A lot of people sending me things saying, "Josh, we can't get any justice. These left-wing judges are letting everybody out." Look, relax, okay? I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's called judicial gnats. And by the way, a magistrate judge, that's not a judge, okay? They have zero power. They are the equivalent of a senior paralegal, okay? They have no power whatsoever. So these magistrate judges that think that they can block, prosecutions, they're insane. And even Pam Bondi said to Don Lemon, "We're coming for you," okay? So all these people that may have gotten out temporarily, they're all going to be put back up when they actually go in front of what's known as an Article 3 judge. Someone that actually has the ability to make real decisions. That's what's going to happen. So again, judicial gnats, don't worry about it. As far as this guy's begging to be put in handcuffs and arrested for incitement to violence. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Josh, I'm going to put up on the screen for you some more information here. 1 second, I'm just going to load this up here. Where are we? This comes from... where is it? Sorry, I've lost it. This is the bit here on Don Lemon. In fact, stay tuned. The US Appeals Court sees probable cause to charge Don Lemon, but declines to order the lower court to sign arrest warrants. Where are we at in terms of this if the AG is struggling here with the court? Like, this is the same problem that we have now with law enforcement. You've got ICE and Border Patrol on one side and local police seemingly on the other, but mainly because they're under-resourced. They're saying there's only 600 police officers in Minneapolis. It doesn't make any sense that these numbers can be so small here. So
because they defunded them all.
What's going on here in terms of Don Lemon and this potential arrest warrant?
Well, she said it. Incoming. In other words, watch what's going to happen next. Look, like I said before, these are judicial gnats. They fly around, they make a lot of noise, they try to protect Democrats as best they can, and then the next thing you know, they get swatted down at the higher courts, the appeals court, and eventually, if it has to go there, the Supreme Court. I've been right on these judicial gnats all along. I called it months ago. That's all they are. And like I said, they just make a lot of noise, but they have no power. And so what Democrats have done here, just so people understand, is that they have packed the lower courts with all of these radical, extreme, open borders, pro-crime judges, right? But the real judges in the appeals courts and things like that, those were appointed mostly by President Trump. And of course, the Supreme Court is definitely more of a conservative-leaning court. So again, judicial gnats, they can fly around, they can say what they want to do, but in the end, they're all going to get squashed.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's certainly getting hotter and hotter under the collar. Here's that meme I wanted to show you. 12.5 million deportations, Clinton. 10.3 under Bush. 5.2 under Obama. 1.5 under Donald Trump. Meanwhile, the other three, no protests or riots. Trump, 350 protests and riots. It is just obscene, isn't it? And
It's because it's Trump.
Yep, and therefore the anti-establishment candidate who for some still think that he's part of the establishment. I can't understand it. There's a lot of people that just want to be misinformed at this point.
He's not part of the establishment. The problem is the establishment is too big, and the establishment is the majority of the Republican Party. And that's why John Thune has his thumb up his you-know-what and isn't bringing out the SAVE Act. Again, we need a reconciliation bill, just like we did the one big, beautiful bill. We need one more. We need to put election integrity in it. Because here's the thing. If, God forbid, they get back in power years from now, and we don't pass the SAVE Act, they're going to pass H.R. 1. And H.R. 1 would be the federalization of our U.S. elections, taking it away and the power away from the state legislatures. If that happens, well, our friend there with the neck tattoos might be correct, but in a different way. I'll leave it at that.
There seems to be an attitude of doomerism or defeatism that you can't beat City Hall, and therefore when people feel that way, they then say, well, Trump's part of City Hall, and it's just another front. Well, you can't be like, it's not possible. What we just saw in Davos, the taking on of the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, taking on Mark Carney, the implied taking on of Anthony Albanese, that there is certainly plenty going on behind the scenes. So he's taking on all of the Five Eyes nations directly. New Zealand's very quiet, of course, and they do have a conservative minority government over there, but it's a very different scenario, so they're sort of out of the way. But and then what they do is they then say Trump's picking on his allies. Well, no, he's not. They're not his allies. It's the globalists versus the nationalists in a restructuring of the world order at the same time as you have this board of peace, to which Trump said he's allowed to, because it's his to rule that in perpetuity. He says, I don't think I will, but I can, just to sort of push a bit further back on them. But we shall wait and see. Now, moving on now, Josh, I want to play a clip. This is out of Australia, and it's kind of related, of course. There's a lot of pressure in Australia at the moment in terms of immigration, and of course with the vote against the hate speech bill last week that has effectively ended Susan Lee, the Liberal leader's career. She will be voted out possibly next month in a leadership spill, or a little bit later when they get their ducks in a row. Barclay McGain suggesting it might be as late as May, but she's finished effectively. The coalition has split formally, that is the Nationals and Liberals, for the second time in as almost as many months, but it's never really happened before. And this is what used to be the controlling government before Albanese was returned the Labor government in 2022. With all that going on, immigration seems to be the number one issue for those conservatives, right of centre, etc. The other thing that's going on now is that you have a split Liberal National Party, you have a rising One Nation, and you have about a dozen third parties who are all jostling for some form of ascension, organisation, etc. The party that I'm associated with, some people want to attack at people first because they don't like that Jared Rennick upset. One example is Malcolm Roberts by saying that he voted for the hate speech bill by abstaining. Well, effectively, it's the same thing, but others want to play
You don't show
semantics.
up to vote, you're voting for it. Exactly.
So there's that purpose there. Now, others don't want to be involved with One Nation because they have a convicted rapist on staff, and there's some other ugly things behind the scenes, and many people, as demonstrated by Pauline Hanson's party. She had 13 senators elected once, and they're all gone within a year. They all left the party to become independents. So she doesn't have a great reputation of retention of people. Craig Kelly can certainly tell you a couple of stories. Mark Latham could probably tell you a couple of stories. Rod Roberts, Tanya Mahaliak, for example. There are many people there. So what's going on within that party? Now, I've had cause to speak to the leaders of a few of the minor parties over the past few days, and let me tell you this straight up. They are working behind the scenes very hard on a process towards merging. However, they all have different ideas on how that should occur, what is required, and they will, depending on who they are, they will invite other parties to come and speak to their parties, which is a suggestion that they're looking at each other how to merge. And there are people within the party saying, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do this? Well, let me make it very clear. You can't win anything with 1% support. You can't win anything with 3% support. And you can't win anything with 5% support. And I want to quote...
If you're too fractured, you can't win, exactly.
You can't do it. And because you just can't win the support to win the seats. Now, I want to quote Russell Broadbent, MP, former Liberal member for Monash, became an independent in his last year or so. And he said to me very specifically, a good leader comes from the centre and brings people along with him, a.k.a. Donald Trump. What you can't do is operate from the fringes, because the most you'll ever get is to 10% support. You can't win anything. So that's the idealists on the sides, and the centre is where the mass is. Now, we don't know who's going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party. We don't know who's going to be the next Conservative leadership of any coalition. But in all reality, our pool of resources for those that are not for Labor and the Greens and the left-wing approach is that we have a centre-left Liberal Party that shouldn't be centre-left. We have a National Party that pretty much lived under the thumb of the Liberals and were forced to go that direction until it's severed, and they no longer will do that. We have a One Nation Party that's represented those that have discarded from the Liberal Party. Pauline Hanson, for example, was ex-Liberal back in the day. And these people form those that are anti-immigration, but seemingly, dare I say it, pro-Israel, because that's where Pauline stands. And then, of course, people get their nose out of joint and go all anti-Zionist, etc. And then you've got others that are anti-Zionist, but not anti-Israeli people who were born in Israel. Right, there's a difference. And then they're not anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic because they say that some Jewish people are also anti-Zionist. Now, you can take Zionism to an extreme and say that they're an extension of a form of terrorism party, etc., and that becomes the Likud Party. But that doesn't mean the Israeli government when it changes either. So it's complicated. Ehud Barak is not in the same political party as Benjamin Netanyahu, and they both have their problems. Ehud Barak could be a very bad person, particularly with his association with Jeffrey Epstein. And it could be, if you read Virginia, and if you read Virginia Roberts Giuffre's book, she suggests that there was one world leader that did things to her that she couldn't even talk about that was so vile. And for mine, the person who I just mentioned is my prime suspect, and it makes me ill to think that.
It's mine as well. And again, this is because I have actually exposed, what's his name? Ehud. Many years ago. When 2019, when I dropped a video and I went through and named all the people in the little black book that I got a hold of that was unredacted. But what you have, your issue in Australia is actually not that difficult to solve, okay? Because if you think about it, Ronald Reagan used to talk about, and he used to basically say that if you believe in 80% of what we believe in, I'm not going to fault you for the 20% that you don't, right? So it's the 80-20 rule. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to create a pretty broad coalition of voters, including Democrats, Southern Democrats and things like that, which helped him win the presidency, because it's not that he was quote-unquote centrist, he was still conservative, but there were certain issues that kind of cut across the ideological spectrum, if you will. Yep. And the one issue, clearly the one issue that quite frankly is in just about every single country, is immigration. And if you can take all of these parties And maybe some of them are interested in climate change. Maybe some of them are interested in financial aspects. Maybe some of them are interested in whatever. But if you're all interested in controlling immigration, then that means you want what's best for Australia. And you should want what's best for Australia, which means that you're a nationalist. You're having a nationalist ideology, which is a healthy thing to do, right? So if you can coalesce these parties and say, look, I don't care about what our differences are. I care about what we have in common. And if all of these, quote, fringe or outside parties or third parties, whatever they may be, can kind of agree that we need to come together in order to gain power based on the one issue, which would be immigration, then you can have a pretty wide-based coalition. Look at President Trump. How do you think President Trump won the election in 2024? One of the main tenets was, I'm going to have the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. And people said, he'll never do it. That's crazy. It's just talk to get elected. Well, look where we are now. The number one largest deportation in U.S. history. Now, is it messy? Yes, it is messy. Do people, fight back against it? Sure they do. But if you are a coalition party with the number one goal, kind of like the AfD is in Germany, that number one goal is curbing illegal immigration, I don't see how you can be beat, to be honest. So that would be my advice to the folks in Australia that may see this.
Well, what I'm going to do now is play you the clip from Catherine Deves, and we'll come back and conclude the show. Take a look.
Hear this anywhere else. This is my first-hand eyewitness account of the Australian government bringing stateless Muslims into our country. And this occurred on Thursday, day before yesterday, when I flew back into Sydney from Bangkok on the day of the memorial for the Bondi massacre, where Islamic jihadis murdered 15 Jews in cold blood. There were over 24 people, women all in niqab or hijab with Arabic writing on their clothing and not speaking English, surrounded by multitudes of children. They were all wearing lanyards saying International Rescue Committee, which is an organisation stripped of its USAID funding that resettles refugees in America. There's no mention of them doing it in Australia, but it was attached to Australian government issued ID that said Australian migration status. And on these ID, it said XXA as their nationality. That means they're stateless. Are these the ISIS brides? Were they people being brought in from Syria or Gaza, which is very much counter to what most Australians want, which is not to have people being brought in from terror-infested areas of the world? I don't know, but I did see these people come in, and once we got off the plane, they suddenly disappeared. Didn't see them in customs, didn't see them in luggage collection or immigration. So where were they taken to? Who are these people? Who's bringing them in? Who's paying for it? Who's paying for them once they're here? And interestingly, the little boys in the group, all of them were wearing a cap branded with Toll, which is the international logistics company. So I don't know. How are they involved? The feeling out there amongst the Australian public is that they want a reduction or a stop to immigration. This is my eyewitness account. I want to know what the government is doing. Why are they being brought here to Australia? We need transparency. So share this with your mates, like, subscribe, and Australia first, Australia always.
Australia first. There's the name of the party. That's what I would do. I would get all these smaller parties that are all fractioned. Because look, the bottom line is, if you're not together, then you're going to get defeated apart. That's just the way it is. But if you can coalesce and have a coalition behind a simple issue, and forget all the other things, and anyone that wants to bring in the other issues, say no. We're not even going to talk about it. We are focused solely on one issue, and that is Australia first and immigration. And you kind of have to have that narrow scope to keep that coalition together. And if you can do that and have one party, whatever it's called, maybe all these parties, nations, this and that, maybe all of them just dissolve into the Australian First Party. And you have one party, and that one party takes on the Labour Party, or it takes on, the Albanese, or, whatever it is, the left-leaning wackos in Australia. And if the coalition is big enough, you'll win. You will win.
So One Nation's expected to do very well because of the immigration policy to which they have been the most outspoken for a long period of time, but there are questions about their economic credentials as to what happens after that. Do they fall in a heap? A little bit like Tony Abbott, once he stopped the boats, he sort of stumbled at that point when he was the last Liberal, when he served as a Liberal Prime Minister. So there is cause for that. So there will be need for other policies, particularly of economic note and health note, etc. But this is what brings people together. My argument is this. What we need is what we call the Harvey Norman franchise model, that each party that comes and joins this new combined coalition brings their one strength and takes over that portfolio. So if you're good at health and wellbeing, you get that portfolio. If you're good at finance and banking, you get that portfolio. If you're good at immigration, etc., you get that. If you're good at legalese or freedoms, etc., like the libertarians would be, you would get that portfolio, and you would build structure around it. You combine your rank and file, you vote, and then you have the primaries within the party to then elect the best pre-selected candidates to run against the majors in the upcoming elections. So there's a process here, so it's quite interesting how it's working. But the good thing is, where there is a will, there is a way, and there is nothing quite like an idea whose time has come. I'm going to end the show, Josh, with this little meme, just put up on the screen for you. This popped up today. It's a cartoon. We must not let Bondi change who we are, as Albanese's giving speeches with snipers on top of the Opera House there, as you can see. That just gives you an idea of where we're at. It's it's tough times, Josh, for all of us around the world. But, the darkness before the dawn is how I feel that where we are at the moment. This battle has been going on in mine for 3,894 days, and we still got plenty more to go. But here we are fighting the good fight. It's been great to see you for the weekend update, and we're going to keep watching, and we'll regroup in a few days for the midweek update.
You got it. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you all on the next show.